All right, everybody. Stocks by the numbers. Welcome back. Just quick update here. Read this article about a pre-trial conference now taking place tomorrow morning, Thursday, regarding Fubo and, of course, Disney, Warner Brothers. But Fubo TV, FUBO, on the New York Stock Exchange, $1.73, up 2 cents on the day, about 1%, up a couple of more cents after hours here, up 4% on some light volume. In my opinion, I just think the news hit of this conference meeting taking place tomorrow morning. And I think that unless a big reversal happens to come out, which in my opinion I doubt, which is maybe how a lot of the traders are thinking, a lot of people may be jumping in here, 175, 180, and then after the conference is finished, we may see a pop and a run up to like the 190s or maybe even retest $2 plus. And it doesn't seem like a big move, but technically you're talking like a 10, 12% move just in one day, right? So we may have some traders jumping in here, but either way, my opinion, you know it, I feel that Fubo is tremendously undervalued, and I think once all this dust settles and the storm passes, I think it's mostly going to go Fubo's way, and I think that the stock should technically be up nicely based on the last couple of quarters we looked at. Subscribers are growing nicely, revenue's growing nicely, losses are being held in check. So, it seems like everything's kind of lining up here for Fubo, but of course they speak about the timeline here. Let's just go over the article quick. In Fubo's antitrust lawsuit, the pay TV operators told the federal judge plans to bring light to sensitive details of carriage negotiations by the media giants over many years. So now we're going to potentially try to out Disney in public, right? And I didn't hear too much about the story, so maybe you guys can add some input in the comments. But I do remember there was a story about a young woman who was suing Disney, right? And then we had Elon Musk supposedly said he was going to pay for her legal fees. And some people were speculating that all of that was so that if it went to trial, Disney would potentially have to disclose a bunch of documents that they may not have wanted made public. So, it's like in the moment it's a small obstacle, but the outcome could potentially be a big reveal for the overall business of Disney, right? And at the same time, there was also an issue this article lays out as well. There's also been an issue recently over the last couple of weeks with DirecTV. So now apparently we have like multiple situations lining up against Disney, all kind of questioning their business practices or their ethics, however you might want to classify it. So this could potentially get really ugly for Disney, in my opinion, over the next 6 to 12 months, pending what the results of some of these suits are and really what the conclusions are. But we'll see. We'll take it day by day. But lawyers for both sides. Pretrial conference on Thursday morning in her New York courtroom. That's tomorrow. The goal of the conference will be to establish a timeline for the jury trial, which Fubo sees as potentially starting by June 25, defense no earlier than October 25. Parties will also hash out the scope of discovery, depositions, and other trial details. Last month, judge stunned the media industry by siding with Fubo, granting a preliminary injunction barring the launch of Venue Sports. The joint streaming venture had been planning to debut as football season was beginning, but doubt is growing about its chances to ever get off the ground. The ruling was not only a rebuke of media companies already grappling with the wages of cord cutting, in many analysts' views, it threatens the very existence of the traditional pay TV bundle. As costly as it was not to be able to launch Venue Sports on schedule, the outcome of the trial, as well as the discovery process leading up to it, could undermine media companies' long-standing leverage in pay TV negotiations. So we are literally trying, it seems, to flip the script and just completely out Disney here. And again, if there's enough evidence painting Disney in a negative light, in my opinion, again, whatever it could be classified as, unfair business practices, unethical business practice, whatever. Kind of like these take it or leave it negotiation tactics, although I don't think that's technically illegal. But anyway, you get my point. If all of these documents now are going to come to light, and we're going to potentially see Disney as kind of like the big bad boogeyman in the media space, this may spell big red for Disney over the next 6 to 12 months. And I'm talking big red. Because usually if something like this happens, again, we have the woman suing Disney, we have Fubo, and we have now a dispute between DirecTV and Disney. And now, over the next couple of months, if it starts, again, to kind of paint Disney as a vulnerable target now, that is usually when more lawsuits get filed afterwards. Almost similar to what you saw with CrowdStrike, right? As soon as that news hit, people were asking me in the Discord, and I said, in my opinion, now the floodgates are open. Now everyone's going to come out and start to sue the company, and that's exactly what you saw. So it begins this snowball effect, which of course would be Disney's biggest problem and their biggest fear right now. Regardless of the injunction ruling, which the media companies have appealed, of course, Fubo's suit is aiming at a larger target. The negotiating stance of programmers, which the company says has forced it to carry less desirable channels, right? So Fubo, we know, a couple of years ago, approached Disney, wanted to do the sports package thing. Disney apparently said, no, you got to take all this stuff too. And Fubo said, no, we don't really want to take all this stuff. And Disney said, oh, well, then we can't do it, right? And now, a couple of years later, they're teaming up with Fox and Warner Brothers. And now they're all kind of coming together and entering the exact space that Fubo is in, that they've been growing nicely in. So this is why, even kind of just common sense, when I initially heard what happened, again, not really patting myself on the back, but when I initially heard some of the details right out of the gate, I said, in my opinion, seems like Fubo has a case more than people might think, and I think it goes in their favor. And again, initial injunction did go in their favor, they appealed, and now we're going to trial, apparently. The result, Fubo says, is higher prices for consumers. A similar theme is at the heart of a current distribution dispute between DirecTV and Disney, which has resulted in a blackout of 16 Disney networks since September 1st. Amazing how sometimes all of these positive events, or even all of these negative events, somehow coalesce and kind of line up along the same timeline, and it could just spell big positivity or also big disaster for another company, right? So we can turn around maybe a year or two from now, and we can see Fubo back up at the 4s and the 5s, hitting new highs. While simultaneously, if everything goes against Disney, now we're going to see Disney potentially dropping into the low 70s and low 60s, and now hitting new 52-week lows, right? So they're going to potentially move inverse of each other, pending the outcome, of course. The Fubo venue case has been cited by DirecTV as an indication that Disney has had ulterior motives to avoid being flexible in talks with distributors, an assertion that Disney has refuted, of course. But again, now you have a couple of people standing up, raising their hands, saying, oh yeah, Disney did this to us. Disney tried to do this with us. We have documents to prove it. As we see here, the Fubo attorney, two sides in the case, as well as third parties, have produced more than 515,000 documents and taken 28 depositions. The law of probability probably tells us that out of over 500,000 frickin' documents, there's probably one or two that may potentially paint Disney in a very kind of unethical light. So, again, all they need is to have some evidence and make a strong case on their behalf, and the judge may just, again, rule in their favor. So only time will tell. But right now, Disney, again, not to speculate, but right now, Disney might be stuck between a rock and a hard place here. The purpose of discovery to this point has been focused on efforts behind the venue joint venture. Leading up to the jury trial, Fubo said it plans to seek additional discovery about the defendants' bundling practices, negotiations, most favored nations. Broadly speaking, requires programmers to maintain similar terms with multiple distributors. The judge found in her ruling was anti-competitive, right? And again, this is essentially kind of the two dots I connected when I heard about it. It was anti-competitive because it was the result of three sports powers pooling resources and wielding undue leverage in the marketplace. Purpose of the discovery of this stage will be to explore wider terrain. Unlike the JV, each of the defendants has engaged separately in their own licensing practices. These practices have existed for decades, and when Fubo entered the market in 2015, which means that discovery for those claims must start much earlier than discovery related to the preliminary injunction. Interesting. Details around carriage talks also closely held, even though they often involve public companies. If the Fubo case proceeds to trial, it could result in a number of previously secret interactions becoming public, and a clearer view of the workings of the pay TV ecosystem at a vulnerable moment. So this is why you could potentially see situations where Fubo, again, when all the dust settles, Fubo stock could start to go off to the races. While at the same time, everyone and their brother, their sister may jump on and start shorting shares of Disney, jumping in longer term puts, just knowing that the stock is going to start to get hacked away at. And this is why, if secret interactions becoming public, again, this kind of reminds me of the situation. And like I said, I don't know everything about it. So if you guys have any input about that woman who's suing Disney, let us know in the comments section. But again, a very similar situation, right? Because everyone's like, oh, you can't sue a corporation like that. They'll delay the trial. You'll spend, who knows, hundreds of thousands, millions in lawyer fees, right? And then you had Elon Musk just randomly out of left field. Oh, yeah, I'll take care of it. I'll pay him. And that's why a lot of people were saying this might be being done to have some of these sensitive documents released. And now, again, we have multiple situations where now we have people taking on Disney head on. And we may start to see some sensitive materials come to light. And it could be a serious issue for Disney. But again, this is just speculation. We haven't heard anything yet. As to the timeline for his case, move at a steady clip. Fubo warned the media companies against obfuscation and foot dragging. Lead defense attorney pointed to substantial complex discovery that remains to be taken. February 26 trial start would still be relatively speedy by the standards of antitrust law, coming 2 years after the initial complaint was filed by Fubo. So unfortunately, again, in my eyes, it still seems like Fubo has a very nice leg to stand on and probably going to have all of this lean in their favor. That I can tell so far, in my opinion. But just like when we initially got the news, all of a sudden we were trending downward for months, in my eyes, kind of for no reason. We were beating them up. A lot of people didn't want to touch it. And then we have a little break out of the wedge. We kind of come back to where we were. We start climbing up. And then, boom, the news hits that, again, the initial injunction went in Fubo's favor. And the stock immediately went back up to 2. So, unfortunately, in my opinion, I still say the stock should be $4 or $5 a share. Again, conservatively speaking, in my opinion. But because we're dealing with legal issues, we could have a situation where we'll run up, above 2.5, and then we'll kind of come back down to 160, and we'll kind of just like hang out here, right? So we may have a situation now where a stock is being held down or just kept flat just because it's still kind of in hearings and awaiting the result. Which is unfortunate, again, because going back the last couple of quarters, Fubo, in my eyes, seems to be doing pretty well. But stock charts real quick, I'll let you go. RSI, kind of middle of the road here, 56.25 on the daily. If we look at some pivot points here, if some people do jump in early in the morning, we could maybe retest this 200-day of 187. And if basically everything kind of remains unchanged, or maybe if we get a sooner date than expected for trial, we may see a pop up to above 2 on Fubo. Next resistance level 219, which is basically where the stock popped initially on the first injunction. MACD potentially flattening out, curling to the upside. And if we have a big pop like that, that may do a bullish cross, and we may even run up 260, 270 here. You can see next resistance level 270, which might seem extreme from these levels. But again, stock was at 370, 380 twice, 3 times maybe, well above $3 on its own merits before we got news of this lawsuit. So in my opinion, to have it break up and pop up back to like 230, 270, in my opinion, that should happen, right? Because the stock was there and higher before this news started to hit. So it's not like it's coming out of left field that they get popped back up to 270. But Again, only time will tell. We'll see what happens after this meeting tomorrow. Again, tomorrow morning, Thursday, Fubo. And we see the 50-day moving average 198 again. So we could have, if we get the run up to above 187, that other moving average, we could immediately have that pop up to the very high ones and potentially retesting those low twos. And we could also see a pivot point here on the weekly of 267. So the next leg up here, if we had the pop up and now we're consolidating and now we get a decent date, we could have now the next break up higher. And this is why, again, we could potentially start to see these 260s, these 270 pivot point levels. And the RSI, of course, still middle of the road here, 53 1/3 on the weekly. So on the longer term time frame, we still have room to go up. And the MACD has kind of just slowly been rising, but essentially just remaining flat for the last several weeks. But we still have positive momentum here, in my opinion, it looks like. So we'll see what happens. But basically, just wanted to do the update and read some things that were mentioned in the article there. And, just keep you guys updated on the timeline moving forward for Fubo. But that's pretty much it. I'll end it there. So once again, Stocks by the Numbers, I want to thank you for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky and volatile and uncertain. So I want to wish all of you success. Hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.